The newest episode of the Nancy Drew TV show is called The Phantom of the Bonny Scot. Now, this episode did not leave much of an impact on me. I think that would make it good for binge watching. If you were watching the entire series at once, this would be an okay episode. You'd watch it, and then you'd immediately move on to the next episode without thinking too much about it. Because that's how binge watching works. You don't stop and think about an episode for 10 minutes or wait a week in between episodes. You just eat it like a piece of popcorn and then move on to the next piece of popcorn. Simple. Another reason it'd be good for binge watching is because it focuses on these characters that we haven't seen in a while. And I'll be honest, I kind of forgot about these characters. It mostly focuses on Everett Hudson, and I'm trying to remember when we've seen him. I think he was in episode 2, The Funeral? And I don't know what other episode he's been in. He must have been in another episode, but I just can't remember. So the entire episode is about, the 6 or 5 members of the Hudson and the Marvin families who we haven't seen very often. So that'd be good if you were binge watching the series. You'd have a better chance of remembering who these characters are. Because in real life, we haven't seen these characters in, 3-4 months? I think the episode could have used a recap, like, previously on Nancy Drew, this happened, and this happened, and this happened. That could have helped. So, Everett Hudson, Nancy tries to make a deal with him in order to get her father out of jail, and he's like, okay, I'll help you, Miss Drew, but only reluctantly. And so Nancy spies on Owen Marvin. Oh yeah, there's some love drama with Nancy and Owen Marvin. The opening had this kind of interesting shot where Nancy's having romantic time with Owen, and then it turns around and, oh no, Nancy's having romantic time with Nick. Which guy will she choose? Love triangle drama, right? So she, at the end of the episode, she kisses Owen passionately, and then she kind of doesn't want to hang out with him anymore, which was a little strange, but it was a really cool shot because Nancy was like standing like this, and behind her was this yellow light. It wasn't a normal white light like you see from a light bulb. It was definitely a colored light, which had a cool halo effect with her hair. So I thought that was a great shot. And, so she sort of follows Owen Marvin and finds out he's located someone who was on the Bonny Scot when it exploded. And Nancy has a bit of a moral dilemma. She's like, okay, do I turn this guy into Ryan Hudson? Do I turn it into Everett Hudson and save my dad? Or do I use this guy to prove the Hudsons are criminals and, well, my dad's not saved, but the criminals go to jail? And Nancy realizes that, I think his name is Bashir. His name was Bashir. So Bashir is haunted by the Phantom of Bonny Scot. That is, every single night for the past 3 weeks, he's had a recurring nightmare where his entire apartment floods with seawater and he drowns. Yeah, and we actually see the nightmare. Nancy and Nick open the door to his apartment and they get all flooded in the water too. So I think that's what pushes Nancy over the edge to decide she's got to help out this Bashir guy. And she kind of tries to play it both ways, right? So she goes to Everett and says, hey, guess what? I'm gonna turn in Bashir. You just need to save my dad. And Everett's like, okay, cool. And then Nancy goes downstairs and the police show up and they're like, Everett Hudson, we're going to arrest you for, blowing up the Bonny Scot. And Nancy's like, haha, my evidence. I guess I'm gonna go with the police now. Yep. So Nancy sort of tried to play it both ways, like no matter which outcome it is, she's gonna help save her father. But now it looks like Mrs. Hudson is going to be angry and try to get revenge on Nancy and or Carson. Could be both. While Ryan Hudson is going to make a power play to be the leader of the family. I mean, I guess this is interesting. It's just sort of strange rich person drama, I guess. I I haven't seen Downton Abbey, but it seems that's what it'd be like, where it's like, hi, guess what? I'm a guy who's in my 40s, but I still take orders from mommy, and mommy and I have power plays over who gets to control the vast family empire. And it just strikes me as kind of weird drama, which maybe, it doesn't quite fit in with teenage ghost stories. Those two genres don't exactly mesh together well. Those worlds seem pretty far apart. But it's okay. Nancy usually gets caught up in drama when there's drama with suspects, right? That's important with the mystery. Meanwhile, the Marvins have accepted Bess, and Bess gets to talk with her British accent for the entire episode. And I thought that was neat. I kind of wish she got to talk more, because most of her lines were like that one line long. She's like, me too, I could go. And it's like, oh, I want to hear more of your British accent. You only said 3 words. So that was neat. I feel like Bess is getting kind of hesitant to work with the Marvins now, because she was there during that big arrest scene, and the Marvins were sniping at the Hudsons, and so it's just a really awkward first dinner with the family. And also, Mrs. Hudson says, oh, Bess, you can't marry a driver. It's okay, you can have a relationship with Elizabeth, but this is not marriage material. Marvins don't marry chauffeurs. And so I feel Bess is a little hesitant about that. There's a big romance scene between Bess and Elizabeth at the end. Like I said, there was the kiss scene with Nancy and Owen. There's sort of a romance, kind of, with Nick and George. In the other subplot, George is running out of business. Nobody's going to the Claw. And the owner is saying, hey, I'm gonna sell. And Nick's like, no, I'm gonna help you. And so they help decorate the Claw with a bunch of balloons and have this big party there. And Nick leaves halfway through to help Nancy, and that really hurts George's feelings. So it still feels like they're trying to go for a love triangle with Nick and George, which works fine. Nick, George, and Nancy. I guess that works fine. I don't really feel like the George-Nancy angle in that love triangle works very well. I don't think Nancy feels that George is a romantic rival at all, whereas George definitely sees Nancy as a romantic rival. However, it's still sweet. George and Nick have a nice relationship, and even if they're just friends, it's still nice to see. I like seeing our characters get along, because they have, I would say, a more interesting and better relationship than Nancy and Bess do, and most of the episode was just Nancy hanging out with Bess. And so they have this big celebration at the Claw, and it's just filled with people. But the owner comes in and says, hey, I'm still gonna sell. I got somebody who called who's interested. And Nick says, oh, it was me. I was the one who's called, who was interested. And George is like, no, you can't spend your millions of dollars. Otherwise, the police will totally catch on to the fact that you have Tiffany Hudson's money. And he's like, no, it's worth it. And I think he said he wants to go half-seas. That's not the correct term, but he wants to go half-seas with owning the restaurant with George. It's like, okay, I'll own half and you own half, and once the restaurant makes a profit, then you have to then you can pay back the money that I loaned you up front. It's surprisingly deep how George wanted to run the restaurant and save the restaurant, because she's doing it for her family. And that was a pretty emotional moment too. So overall, it was an okay episode. Like I said, it didn't leave much of an impact on me. Not really directly related to the mystery of Lucy Sable. Nancy got a piece of paper which suggests that Lucy Sable's mother is a suspect, and that's probably going to be the topic of the next episode. But sort of like the previous episode, its connection to the Lucy Sable mystery is very flimsy if you will say. Nancy, at the very start, Nancy maybe finds a piece of information. At the very end, we follow up on that piece of information. That's basically what happened last episode. It's what happened in this episode. So, As I said, probably be great for binge watching. Just move on from this episode to the next one. Looking forward to seeing what's happening next, rather than spending a lot of time focusing on this episode and reflecting on all the things that happened there.